Year 6 and ready for another story time with Kick. We got some really good feedback yesterday. A couple of you saying that you really enjoyed it and you wanted to carry on reading it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to try and get through as much of the book as possible in the next couple of days. And then we've obviously got the Easter holidays coming up. So it might be that I just upload maybe 2 snippets of it over the Easter holidays because we all need a break, myself and you guys. And then we can pick it back up after the Easter holiday, depending on how much we've got left. So to recap yesterday, we'd got Rochy making sure that Budi was out of trouble with the football boots. They narrowly escaped getting caught after putting those boots back. And then Grandma was quite poorly. They'd got the doctor out to come and see her and he doesn't really know what's wrong with her yet. And he got the opportunity to think about what it would be like if he was able to go back to school. And it sounded like he wasn't too bothered about it, which is quite bizarre because lots of us are missing school right now. And I think myself included, we'd all love the opportunity to go back to school. But Budi's dreams of being a footballer take a bit more priority and he doesn't see how the two go together. So it seems like he's about to go to bed with a lot on his mind. We'll see what happens. I pull a face and I know better than to argue. Instead, I look at Grandma and she's already dozed off in her chair. Is Grandma all right? I ask. Of course, says Mum. She just gave me a bit of a scare today, that's all. I look into my cup and finish the rest of my tea. I think I'll go to bed, I say. Thanks for dinner, Mum. Mum and Dad smile, but they look tired. For the first time, I realise how old they must be. And I lie awake for what feels like hours. Outside, the generators seem louder than usual. And even when they cut out, I still can't sleep. Someone races around the streets on a scooter. 2 dogs bark at the sound of an engine. And I start to imagine that the dogs are police dogs, coming to drag me away. I wish Grandma was awake because I could really do with hearing one of her stories right now. In the next room, Mum and Dad talk for a long time. I know they're talking about Grandma, even though I can't tell what they're saying. A single tear rolls from the corner of my eye and pools in my ear, wet and uncomfortable. I hope Grandma is really asleep and not just pretending. We get to chapter, I can't remember what we're on now, but this is called Suspicious Minds. When I wake up in my own bed, it's almost worse than the alternative, waking up in a prison cell. By now, the dragon and his brothers will have realised I've broken my side of the deal, and it's only a matter of time before they frame me. I wonder when they'll come for me. I wonder who will come for me. Will it be the police? Will they let the foreman punish me first? Will it be the dragon himself? I stare up at the crack in the ceiling. It seems to reach a little further every time I look at it. The heat when I step onto the street is overpowering. Even the shady back streets are hot and airless. It's got to rain soon. I pass a stall selling coconuts and stop to buy some milk. I imagine that the coconut was picked from a giant tree on that faraway island Grandma told me about, and I start to feel stronger with every sip. But then I turn the corner and the factory comes into view, and I realise something is horribly wrong. There is a crowd outside of the factory, and as I get closer, I notice the doors are locked. The factory doors are never locked at this time in the morning. Standing in the front of the crowd is an upturned plastic crate, and the foreman is on it. My stomach squirms as though the coconut milk has gone sour, and I shuffle between the scooters and cars in the traffic jam and join the back of the crowd. A cigarette hangs from the foreman's mouth, and he locks down on us, though with the smoke as more and more workers join the crowd. Through the smoke, as more and more workers join the crowd. I spot Belmont on the back of Rochy's Manchester shirt and make my way over to him. He is so busy rolling a stone beneath his foot that he doesn't notice me standing at first. Hi Rochy, how's it going? As he looks up, I see how tired he is. Oh, not bad. Do you know what's going on? I ask. He shakes his head. No idea, but they're not letting anyone in for some reason. I imagine the foreman announcing that there's someone at the factory who thinks it's acceptable to steal. Everyone looks around at one another, tutting and shaking their heads. Then I imagine the foreman calling someone out of the factory to identify the thief. It's the dragon. Even though I try to hide, he still manages to point me out, and I get dragged in front of everyone and humiliated. So I try and think of something else. Rochy is rolling the stone again, looking down. What did you get up to last night? I ask. Huh? Nothing. You? Not much. For some reason, I don't feel like telling him about Grandma. My parents want to send me to the school when we get a pay rise. Lucky you. Rochy looks at his feet the whole time. More workers press in behind us, so that if wanted to escape, I would have to push through a wall of bodies. The air smells of sweat and soil and petrol. I watch the foreman's face over the shoulder of the person in front, and he takes one last look around before spitting his cigarette onto the ground. Quiet, all of you! Listen up! Everyone stops talking, but the foreman still has to shout over the traffic. Most of you are probably wondering why I've gathered you out here this morning, although at least one person knows the reason why. The foreman pauses and squints to the crowd. The sun seems to get hotter with each passing second, and I can feel the sweat trickling across my scalp. Rochy watches the foreman, but his foot keeps dragging the stone from side to side. It displeases me to announce that we have a thief in our midst. And for a moment, it feels as though the coconut milk is about to surge up into my mouth, but I clamp my lips together and swallow as hard as I can. The workers around me start murmuring, and their broad bodies press closer against my skin. Quiet! Last night, somebody broke into the factory and stole a pair of boots. The police have been informed, but it will be a lot better for the perpetrator if he or she comes forward now and confesses. Everyone shuffles and looks around at one another. Rochy lifts his foot and stares at the round stone beneath. There is a deep groove in the dirt where it has been rolled from side to side. The dragon must have already sent someone to steal the boots, which means it won't be long until I become the prime suspect. The crowd presses in. Someone's hairy arm, slick with sweat, slides across my neck as if they jostle for space. I know this is an inside job, and if anyone is found to be withholding information, they will be punished just as severely as the thief. In the meantime, everyone suffers as a result. Does anyone have anything they wish to say? The foreman stares into the crowd, and for a second, our eyes meet. Then he steps down from his box and turns towards the factory. Very well, he says, but you've been warned. The foreman pushes us back by making everybody work in our familiar sections. Unfamiliar sections. Me and Rochy get put on boxing. Sometimes it feels as though I spend my whole life boxing boots. The foreman paces along the row, saying, You'll work on this section for as long as it takes to find the thief. And if we're behind at the end of the day, you'll go back to your stations and keep working until the orders have been met. Are you sure you don't know about anything that's happened? You know my office door is always open if you want to have a chat. In the meantime, I suppose I'll just have to suspend everybody's pay. Maybe that will help you remember. And this is bad news. If our pay is suspended, it means we might never get paid again. And if we never get paid again, we won't receive the pay rise, and I won't be able to pay for Grandma's medication, and I definitely won't be able to save enough money to go to the Burnabout. After about an hour of pacing around each section, the foreman goes up to his office and closes his door. Rochy, I whisper, do you think the dragon hired someone to steal the boots? Rochy frowns and he shakes his head. I don't know, he says, wrapping a pair of boots in paper and putting them in a box. Maybe. Another pair goes in another box. But we shouldn't be talking, he says. And another pair. The boss is really angry. And another. So just leave me alone. The foreman reappears on the walkway and places one hand on the railing, and in the other hand he holds up a wad of cash. Listen up, all of you. I'm offering a reward to anyone who comes forward with information about the thief. A one-off cash sum. And he waves the money. If you don't need to worry about being viewed as a confidant, I'm willing to overlook the fact that you may have been concealing information. Just come and see me whenever you like. Now get back to work. Everyone in the factory seems to be whispering all of a sudden, but it just looks like Rochy is in a trance. Psst, I say. Did you hear that? A one-off cash sum. Like the lottery. How much do you reckon he was holding? I don't know, Rochy says. What does it matter? Well, if we knew who stole the boots, that money could be ours. But we don't know who stole the boots, he says. I know, but we could try and work it out. We know the dragon must have hired someone, so we've already got a lead. And if we find out who he hired, I'll be off the hook. And the reward might be big enough to cover Grandma's medication and a trip to Madrid. Rochy opens his mouth as if to say something, but instead he just huffs and goes back to boxing shoes. We could make it fun, like being detectives. Do you remember that television show we watched? You could be my sidekick. No, Budi. Okay, I'll be the sidekick, but I still get to carry a gun and drive the car. First we have to start looking for clues. We also need to find out whether there were any witnesses. Forget about it, Budi. The dragon wouldn't be stupid enough to leave clues. The whole idea is stupid. Just forget about it. I shove a pair of boots into a box and chuck them on top of the pile. Why are you being so stubborn? I ask. And why won't you help me? Rochy pretends not to hear me, so I ram another pair of boots into the box. During my lunch break, I go to the canteen and try to think of ways to solve the mystery over a tray of rice and sauce of the day. At the table next to me, a couple of women have whispered an argument, which makes it hard to concentrate. Thankfully, they soon get up and leave, but I begin to realise that catching a thief might be harder than I thought. These things are so much easier to solve on the television. The buzzer goes and I leave the canteen. And as I walk towards the Roxon section, the foreman comes out onto the walkway and hits the railing with his rotan. Go back to your regular stations, he shouts. The thief has been found. And then he marches back into his office and slams the door. There is a lot of noise and confusion as all the workers try to reach their stations. The aisles are too narrow for so many people. One girl shrieks as she is tripped and trampled on. By the time I finally sit down at my sewing machine, Rochy is already hard at work on a pair of boots. Doesn't look like we'll get that reward, I say, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't even look at me. What if he spoke to the foreman when I was on my break? What if he told him what he saw me doing? No, Rochy would never do that. I start sewing an upper, but every few seconds I look around to see if anyone's missing. I desperately want to know who spoke to the foreman. Maybe the dragon is sitting in his office right now. Eventually, the foreman emerges and strides along the walkway. I try not to stare as he walks down the steps and paces to the factory, but I can't help it. He's still carrying the rotan. The foreman looks straight ahead, tapping the rotan against his leg. As he gets closer, I notice a whistling and tune, and he stops at the end of my row. Stops walking, stops whistling, stops tapping the rotan. And then he turns and he heads towards me. Rochy, how could you? I look down at my machine. The needle punches stitches into the material, and I feel a gust of warm air as the foreman passes me. And as I follow him out the corner of my eye, I notice that Rochy is dripping with sweat. The foreman suddenly lunges at the girl sitting next to Rochy. She screams as she is dragged from her seat, with one hand clutching her arm, the other swiping the rotan at the back of her thighs. The foreman marches her along the row towards the exit. For the first time I can recall, the factory is completely silent, apart from the girl's screams and the foreman's angry voice, and the swish and smack of the rotan. This will teach you to steal from your employer, the foreman shouts. You'll never work again, do you hear me? You're finished. But it wasn't me, the girl sobs, trying to fend off the rotan with a free hand. Oh, you would say that. All thieves are liars. It's second nature. From what I hear, you've been bragging about your crime, promising to do as many times as you can to get away with. I'd whip you with all the way to the police station if I thought you were worth the effort. But you're not. You can fend for yourself on the streets like little tiggers. The girl opens her mouth to say something, but all that comes out is a small wail. Her cheeks shine beneath the electric lights, but her gaping mouth is black. "What is it?" the foreman says. "Have you got something to say? Come on, let's hear it." The girl gasps, trying to catch her breath, and finally she mumbles, "What about my family?" But the foreman laughs. "What about your family? What about them?" And he squeezes the girl's arm until she shrieks. "You should have thought about your family before you started stealing from me. Now get out of my sight." The foreman pushes the girl through the door, giving her one final blow with the rotan. He slams the door shut and turns back to face the room. "What are you all looking at? Get back to work." Suddenly all the usual factory noises return, the hum of the machines, the rustle of the paper, the creak of the chairs. But above them all is the girl outside, crying, moaning and banging on the door. When I get home, I don't tell anyone about my day. I wrote the next chapter, which is called In the Ghetto. What a chapter. Lots has happened. I've got a lot of suspicions about Rochy. He seemed really, really anxious in this story. So I wonder if he's got something to do with maybe telling on the girl and trying to get the attention away from Budi, sorry. I'm also wondering if he was so nervous, maybe he's the one that stole the boots. Lots of questions going through my head. But leave a comment and let me know what you think. And we'll get the next chapter tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye.